Welcome back, guys, to the second episode of the Director's Dive on Stanley Kubrick. Moving on through his filmography, onto his third theatrical release, which is the epic Spartacus. 1960, the biggest film of 1960, as far as like money made. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I can see it, obviously directed by Kubrick, written by Dalton Trumbo, which I don't know if you guys know who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I watched Trumbo.
Cranston.
Yeah, right.
It's Bryan Cranston. Yeah, he wrote this movie. But he was like a big writer. He got like blacklisted because of his communism views. And then they finally like brought him back for this movie kind of and like gave him his name back or whatever on this one. So a lot of drama on the behind the scenes on Spartacus, a lot of passion, a lot of conflicting ideas on how the movie should be, which I read into a little bit, which was cool. But yeah, I don't know. This one's starring Kirk Douglas and Laurence Olivier, two powerhouse actors of the time also. I'm going to throw it around because I guess I should give my taste first, but I found this to be a fantastic film, and it may be a 5-star film for me. So I'm taking the highest road possible on this one, and I didn't think I would. But what did you guys think of it?
Care to? No. No. I mean,
Let it out.
No, I think my main problem with this, and maybe it was a problem, I thought it was, all right. It's like a play, right? And I think this was like a time in film where, you know, people are still trying to figure out like if plays work on screen and everything still. For me, it didn't work. I thought it was like amazing in production value, and like it was obviously like this epic tale, and the story itself it's telling is like a good story. But I don't know, man. It was just hard for me to sit there for 3 hours. The intermission was like a godsend. I was like, all right, I can step away and take a break for a little bit. But
Yeah.
technically, yeah, great film. Just a little long-winded for me, for my taste. But yeah, I can totally see like the warranted, like this is probably a masterpiece in like Kubrick's eyes and for the time, you know, like.
Well, actually,
sure.
behind the scenes, like this is one film that Kubrick like disowns from his filmography, which is kind of interesting.
Wow. He wasn't even attached to it at first.
Yeah, he was a director for hire for this one, so that's where a lot of the conflict came in, was between him and Kirk Douglas about like how this movie is supposed to be told.
Yeah. Burn some bridges in.
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of interesting because I don't really know why Kubrick would disown this movie personally, because I think it's so phenomenal. I don't know, but what did you think, Alex?
This is the Kubrick I know. I did not enjoy this movie. It was not good.
Yeah.
Not the fact that it was 3 hours. It didn't need to be 3 hours, for fuck's sake. I mean, those long, drawn-out sequences where there was a 10-minute black screen at the beginning of just...
Yeah. Dude, at first I was like,
my God.
Am I streaming? Am I like, is this
I did the same thing. I paused it and I'm scrubbed ahead. I'm like, okay, it comes to life here.
I was like, am I not getting video right now? Like, what the hell? Like,
It's just so Kirk Douglas was way out of character. I mean, this was not his role, in my opinion.
What?
Yeah. I think he was puny. I think he was too clean looking. I mean, I don't know what the fuck his hair was doing, but just a little pony in the back, and the rest was just clean cut and gelled up. It's not his role. He's too much of a pretty boy. I don't know. I didn't like it. I think that it was not necessarily okay. It was boring. I'll be honest. It was kind of boring.
Highlights, but yeah.
I found it to not be boring at all. That's what's great. Like, maybe I'm just like kind of digging older movies more now, but like I found every scene to be compelling in a different way. And like it built the story in its own every step-by-step way. Like, and then it like the way it crosses the Roman story with Spartacus's story as like the two conflicting sides. That was like very evenly balanced, I felt, throughout the whole movie on how and when they were showing and what. I don't know. I mean, it's hit or miss. I really hope it wasn't just like the runtime and like the oldness of it that killed it for you guys. But the opening like hooked me. Like seeing the slave as like the fighter who's like not going to take it slave, and then bringing him to the gladiator training and like kind of easing the audience in on like this time and like how this time operates. I mean, it's a very like shitty time to live, and I think they displayed the drama of that time and the conflict of that time pretty well in this, on like all different levels of like politics, from the slaves to the politicians, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know. I found this to be very captivating, which is like, I don't know. And there's scale and there's spectacle, which is Kubrick's thing. I think he brought a lot of that. Like, I thought a lot of these frames were like picturesque and beautiful, and like there's painting backdrops, obviously sometimes maybe that takes you out a little bit or whatever. It took me out slightly, but then I kind of went back to being like, I'm watching this passionate artistic story on screen right now, and it just brought heart to me, like on a passion level of these filmmakers at this time, like telling this story. And I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I can see all the gripes on like length and like, I guess, boringness, but I found to be very engaged, especially with Kirk Douglas. I thought he brought you into the character like so well. I find like I haven't really watched much Kirk Douglas stuff, but it gave me secondary respect for Paths of Glory as like him as a main actor, because I think he just has that gravitas, that something like he's got that fucking dimpled chin, man. I mean, you want to look at him like, but I can keep going because I also thought Spartacus was like one of the most compelling hero characters I've seen in a long time on just like a well-rounded and like human basis. I found him to be like the Jesus figure that I actually respect and enjoy of this man, like the slave who is in it for everyone around him and freedom and like a new life. Should I keep? I don't know, man. I have a lot to say about why I love this movie, and I could keep going, but what's some other like gripes?
It's not the runtime or the fact that it's old, because I really like The Killing. That's almost a 5-star film, and it was well crafted. I mean, old films some of them are better than the shit being made these days. So it's really not that. And I like long movies. I mean, but after this long movie, it felt like the entire time someone was just stepping on my shoulders, and I was just like, when's it gonna end? Make it end, you know? And it just some scenes felt super dragged on. In the whole, everyone devoted to Spartacus felt kind of, I don't know, not organic. I mean, I get like what he symbolizes and what they respected about him, but it just felt like they're just down to their core. I don't think they would all be like, I'm Spartacus, because what did he do? He just led them all into battle and died. Like, I don't know.
I mean, they were slaves and they had the only taste of freedom they've ever had in their life. But
yeah, he was like planning to get them on a boat and just
he had a plan to get them all to safety, but then the politicians fucked him, obviously. But
I
don't really have a problem with him as a character, and I think the scenes that like bog it down a little bit for me are like when it switches to some of the like Roman Senate and some of those characters. Like, I get that they're trying to like portray like the politics of the time and of Rome and stuff like that, and like what like the the juxtaposition of some of these characters. But I don't know, there were like just the weird lulls when we're like in their villas, and like with a character we don't fully like know where he's staying or like why he's important.
Bring me a stool. Do you like snails or oysters?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, man.
Moral for
Well, I mean, that scene is with like Antonius, right? I mean, I'll give you my fucking reason. That scene has Antonius, and that character is the linking character between the two sides of the story,
right?
And so he's a very important. That scene I heard was cut from the theatrical release or whatever, probably just due to like culture reasons at the time.
Yeah.
But even that scene has a place in the story because it needs to show you why Antonius would leave and join Spartacus, and like,
I thought it was a good speech when he was like, you just gotta serve. It's the Roman machine. Like, you're part of that machine now. But again, more so just on the Senate side of stuff. Like
was it the Gracchus character, the older, fatter dude? Is that the guy, or is it Laurence Olivier's Craxus? Is it something? I don't know. These all sound the same.
Crack ass.
Yeah. I don't know. Like the inclusion of Julius Caesar, I get is like important because he's Julius Caesar, but again, like there wasn't much bearing on the story for him. But I don't know,
man. It's all encapsulated in Craxus, Laurence Olivier's character, as like all the secondary characters in the Senate, and especially the older, fatter guy who has like the last fuck you to him at the end. It's all wrapped in like the downfall of Laurence Olivier's character to reflect the downfall of Spartacus's character. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are two characters on the same journey of like being taken, everything's taken away from them. I guess not as much from Craxus, obviously, but it has like that side with, especially with like the senators and like Caesar. He's playing the parts, and he's making Caesar go here. He's making that one dude fight the army and get exiled or whatever. And it's gonna cause his downfall for all the like bridges he's fucking up and burning, you know, like. So maybe some of them were like maybe you hopped into the Senate room too many times. I could see that, or like you're with Gracchus. I want to say that's the character's name, the old white man, whatever, chubby dude. But I could see maybe too many of those times. But I was like thinking about it after the fact. I was like, that was a 3 hour and 20 movie, and I was like, what? I mean, that shouldn't be made. Like, what would I cut of this? What would I cut? And I was like, not really finding a good place or a good scene to cut. I was like, I kind of needed that. I kind of needed this. I kind of needed, like, I wouldn't really cut anything. I kind of respect that this is the epic 3 hours that it is, you know? I don't know.
Understandable. I mean, I think that my biggest thing that decided it as not a good movie for me, in my opinion, was I forgot about it immediately after watching it. Nothing landed, nothing stuck, and I wasn't walking away with, let me think about Spartacus. Am I Spartacus? I never thought about that, you know. I was just kind of like, it was a movie. That was 3 hours and 12 minutes or however long it is. 197 minutes.
I thought about it.
Again,
I think
like something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, it's something like if this was like on a grand stage in a play, I would still enjoy it, probably at the same level as I enjoy this. You know, if it felt like it was watching like this epic tragedy or whatever drama, you know. And it's like those were things I looked forward to seeing like throughout like young age, like school and high school, like any trips where we were like going to like watch a play, I was like in for, you know. So like once I kind of like settled in, was like, you know, this is a play on screen, does it translate? Maybe not fully, you know. I might just enjoy this better if I were like in a live audience and like watching like in like the, you know, closer to the feeling of these actors portraying some of these like classic characters. But so maybe there's just a disconnect there. But,
I did have a thought early on, actually, that really kind of like maybe brought some love for me when I was like questioning why the fuck my screen was black. I was like, what the fuck? Like, oh, it's an overture for like 5 minutes. So I was like, okay. And I was picturing people in the theater in 1960 like finding their seats and like with the music playing and like kind of talking, you know, and like getting excited about this new big feature that they were about to go see, like Spartacus, holy fuck, like, you know, and like, so I was kind of picturing the excitement in the theater in that time too. And like in the intermission, I was like, oh man, I mean, hell, more movies should plot 3 hour movies to have intermissions, because I would be accepting of them more. So like, that's cool. You know what you're doing, and on a pacing level. And then I pictured like the people in the theater like gossiping about like how cool the movie, you know, like maybe some of them don't like it or whatever, but I found I transported myself to the theater like you wanted to be, kind of know, or whatever, you know, like in the experience more. And it just like it brought the excitement level on like a blockbuster 1960 scale for me too. So I had that implanted pretty early, so maybe that kind of helped me, you know.
No, that's fair. I think the only other weak link, like I said, was just Kirk Douglas and Spartacus in general. I just didn't care for that character.
Yeah,
Didn't care for Kirk Douglas's portrayal of that character. I don't know. It was just kind of like.
Yeah, I thought there were moments where I couldn't believe, and moments where I was like this. He's like still like there were moments where I was like, this is a lovable. I can see why people would rally around this guy, you know. So I couldn't tell you what those moments are. But.
He's very like stern. He's very knowledgeable. He's not like there. He's not going to like enforce his command over someone. He doesn't like think that maybe he'll like take their advice. You know, I mean, maybe I'm just like thinking about Walking Dead too much, but I was like, I think Andrew Lincoln like took a lot from Kirk Douglas's Spartacus as far as like honorable protagonist who's like a just man. You know, like I found. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people took from this movie as for that type of protagonist, but. I mean, that's kind of I wonder, like, because I engaged with the character the whole time, and at the end, it's such a tragic tale. But like the way that the wife says that he's not a god, he was a man. He was a simple man. He was a slave, like to Crassus or Craxus. Craxus doesn't understand because he's a politician who's lived at this level. He doesn't understand why people just straight up respect him. Like, and by the end, when he's on the cross and dying, and she says, "Please just die, please just die." I was with that man's tragic tale, and that's why I think about it still. It's like I was there the whole time, so I don't know. Maybe I was just in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe it was the atmosphere. You put yourself there, and
I woke up. I went downstairs. I put on the TV, and I was like, "Oh, I better fire up Spartacus, or else I'm not gonna have time." So, and then I just like kind of had like a lazy day watching a movie day where I think it just like hit me. I was like, "Man, this is a good fucking movie, man." And it's one of the best epics ever made, and one, if not, but the best epics I've ever seen, by far. By far.
Fair.
This one has like meat, where like most epics I've seen are just like trying to play you epicness on the screen. At least this one, I felt maybe it did it a little bit, but like this one like had character-driven hooks everywhere, every scene. I felt, but maybe I was just in it. So.
No, man. I mean, there's like for me, like some of those moments maybe you're describing. Some of those moments for me were like when he's first introduced to the gladiator camp, kinda, and like he's like sitting there waiting to fight the dude. Like he's sitting next to the dude. He's like going to fight to death, and like they're just sort of like he's like looking and watching the fight, and like they're like sort of like sizing each other up.
It like washes over him that he has to like he like looks for him to kind of like see how he's feeling, and he just like gives him nothing at first, and he's like, okay, I gotta like prepare myself now, and then it's like a back and forth. But
I think one of the most brilliant things that Kubrick did in that sequence was before they go out to fight, before Kirk Douglas goes out to fight, he is sitting right across from John Ireland, and they are staring at each other because they have become friends. They did something you're not supposed to do, which is to bond. Gladiators are not supposed to make friends with with each other, because you'll have to kill each other. You'll have to kill the other person. And there's a sequence in that movie where they're inside this wooden holding pen, and there's shadows coming through, the sunlight coming through the wood, and they're staring at each other, and you hear the entire fight that precedes their battle. You just hear the sound effects, and you just play it off the expressions of Douglas and Ireland looking at each other and wondering, oh my God, we're going to have to fight each other. And as that is happening, at one moment, there's a tremendous explosion of flesh hitting wood, and the two combatants slam into the pen, which is the one thing that takes them out of their thoughts about having to kill each other. That is maybe one of the most classic scenes in Spartacus.
I mean, that fight I thought was phenomenal. The tension in it,
awesome. And
like
the way it ended for that dude, like going for the box of those beat, like that was like a whole awesome political like statement
and
for everything.
And that fight, Craxus doesn't even like watch Spartacus. He doesn't even realize what's happening beneath him, which is like about to come up and fuck him in the ass. Like, it's just, that's smart, man. I think it was really smart. And I kind of like, don't really, like I said, I don't really understand why Kubrick disowned this one. I think it's more of just like a saltiness on like, didn't take my ideas. Because he wanted more of more of the Roman politician side. He said, Kubrick did, like more Roman in this movie would not have done it like service, So I think it's just
too
like
much.
It like perfectly kind of balanced it all for me, and I don't know, man. I'm coming around on the Kubrick train. I know, like maybe this one kind of dipped a little bit. But I can see why that this man is considered like a game changer. Because if like I've said it, if I was back in 1960, I would want to go see this in the theater right away. But I don't know. I think this one really made his name too, probably.
Yeah, I like the other ones better. So hopefully they get an uptick in the upcoming ones that we're going to watch. But I've seen some of them, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. I am.
I'm considering flopping my reviews of this and Paths of Glory a little bit. Yeah. For me, this one like it put Paths of Glory more into perspective for me a little bit. I was like, I think at the end of the day, I'm appreciating this one just a tad more than Paths of Glory, just like kind of on that plea.
I think
you know,
Path to Glory was more of Kirk Douglas's movie. Like that was more suited for him. That role of kind of politically
Yeah.
like stationed where he's at because he's clean cut, suave. I mean, he's in the trenches, but at the same time, he's got to be a lawyer or whatever you want to call it.
Commander or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, he has that atmosphere about him. So seeing him as
I could see
Spartacus as like a clean cut, oiled up, gelled hair, it just I don't know. I didn't buy it.
that. Yeah, I could see that kind of. Yeah, I mean, all these dudes in this movie are like white dudes that are probably just oiled up and
He wasn't even that jacked. Like, come on, put some effort in, man. Get a little cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got that natural strength. That
Yeah, I
slave
guess.
strength.
They weren't juicing it in the 60s.
Yeah,
quite yet.
it's not
They didn't have
300
that
levels. Yeah.
Right.
So join us next week, guys. We're going to do a double feature with this next one with Lolita and Dr. Strangelove. And we'll talk about these ones next week.
Yeah, this Kubrick train keeps on chugging.
Always chugs along. See you then, guys.